what? Let's talk about what games and projects you've been working on.
Yes. So I think with stuff that I've released, I think the first one wasn't sort of, I say properly, but it wasn't sort of released like fully, like as a full sort of like game as such. But you know those old LCD games, and you had like say like the racing ones where you had to just avoid other cars basically, and you got a point for every car you passed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I made like a version of that using AGD, Arcade Game Designer,
Okay.
by Jonathan Caldwell. So I've made sort of, I've probably got about 40 odd things that I'd sort of tried out like in a folder, just like, I'll just try it because I love tinkering. I love experimenting, just like trying different sort of techniques and different ways of doing things, which is how the Zoosters demo came about, because that was a load of different things that I tried out. I was like, oh, I wonder if that will work, and I wonder if that will work, and etc.
Love that demo. Love it.
Yeah.
Need more demos.
Yeah, no, I've got some effects that I've done. It's putting them together, and I'm working on something else with Paul at the moment, but
Excellent.
it's going to be more music based. So you're going to have like options that you can select and stuff, with a few demos around the sides and the tops and stuff. So yeah, that's in the works at the moment. But yeah, so I called that sort of LCD type game, if you like. I called it Brick Racer.
Okay.
And that was the first sort of thing I sort of released, if you like.
Was that on the original Spectrum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was just for a normal Spectrum. And then I started sort of just playing with like a platform sort of style game in AGD, and I thought, well, let's see if I can sort of come up with something. And I was trying to sort of think of like loads of ideas, and I thought, well, maybe you could sort of be like this sort of ball that rolls around, because one of the games that I liked for the Spectrum was Impossible.
Yeah.
Where it's sort of a sort of pseudo 3D environment where you could go sort of like go to the back, come to the front, you had to bounce in the cylinders, and then get to the end without sort of getting popped and things like that. And of course, you're a bouncing ball. And I thought, well, it'd be cool to sort of do like a 2D version of that. But you know, I ended up sort of just doing an animation of a sort of like a rolling ball going along. So you'd move and then it'd sort of animate and roll at the same time. And I thought, well, you could sort of like have cylinders that you can sort of bounce on or collect, that kind of thing. And then I did a video, and I sort of put it out to the community and just said, this is just something I'm working on at the moment. And some people said, oh, I like the ball animation. Some people said, I like the bubble animation.
Right. Okay.
So I'm like, oh, bubble. Yeah, because I hadn't made it like a solid color.
Yeah.
It was just the outline and just like a sort of reflection sort of bit in the middle, that's just rotated around, and that's all it was. But because some people sort of said bubble, and it was probably about 50-50 on, there's quite a few comments. I can't remember how many comments there were, but it's probably half and half, where it's half said it ball, half said bubble. And I thought, bubble, actually, that sounds like a good idea, bubble. And then I thought, well, actually, you could have like bubble sticks that you get, like the sticks that you dip into bubble mix to blow the bubbles and stuff. I thought, oh, you could collect the sticks. And I thought, well, actually, sticks, it looks a bit sort of weird and stuff. Maybe have bubble mix instead. Like because the bubble mix that you sort of get, I could just call it bubble mix. So I thought, well, you could have that instead. And then I thought, well, how am I sort of going to get like a bouncing animation? Because in AGD, all you had was sort of move up, move down, like automatically you could have sort of something bouncing between sort of 2 points, but like smoothly. So not sort of like boing, boing, but just sort of going up, down, up, down. And I thought, well, that doesn't really work. So I thought, well, let's just mess around with mechanics and just see what I can sort of come up with. And I thought, well, I wonder what happens if I'm automatically moving the sprite up and then I issue a full command, and I do that in every frame. So when you issue the full command, it basically gives the player character gravity. So if you're on a platform and you go off the edge and you haven't put the full command on there, it will just float. It won't sort of fall. But if you issue the full command, it will have the gravity and it'll go down. So I thought, well, let's have it with sprite up and full. And it created a perfect bouncing animation.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, perfect. It's such a simple thing. It was just 2 commands, full, sprite up. And that's all it was. And that's the bouncing animation. And I thought, well, I'll get it to when it hits the floor. So if can't go down, do the bouncing animation. And then, that's how that was sort of born, really. So that was released. So I started that in 2017, ended up releasing it in 2018. So I think it was about 11 months on and off as a design, coming up with the designs for the screens and stuff. Well, it took me a while because I've never designed a game before. But yeah, so I thoroughly sort of enjoyed doing that. And it got really sort of good reception and stuff. So I'm pleased that people enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I want to do other games. Obviously, I've done Flappy Bird for the Next as well, mainly because I wanted to sort of challenge myself. I wanted to sort of see if I could do it because it involved parallax scrolling. So you had the layer 1 background scrolling slower than the layer 2 background coming in, and then it was a case of drawing because the pipes are tiles, so it's a case of dynamically drawing those each time. But there's no tile map, so it's all random. So all the pipes are randomly generated. They're not predetermined before the actual game starts. They're all randomly generated on the fly. So every pipe you see, everyone that comes on has been chosen at that time.
Yeah.
So, and then I thought, well, with the bird going up and down, use similar to what AGD did, have like a sort of like a jump table to make it sort of like have, instead of sort of like this, an actual proper bouncing motion, if you like. So similar kind of thing. And yeah, it all just sort of went from there, really. So I've got loads of things that I've tinkered with. Obviously I've got the Zeustas demo, and that was a result of me sort of posting a few sort of like things that I'd sort of done in the basic Next group. And Paul Hesso commented on one of them, and he said, "Oh, this would sort of be, good with some music to it." And and I said, "Oh, are you offering?" And I'd never spoken to the guy beforehand. I've never sort of met him. I'd seen like his music, his YouTube channel and stuff, and I'd sort of heard about him. I knew sort of he did like Commodore 64 stuff, but I sort of messaged him, and I was like, if you're interested, we can sort of do something. If you've got a track, I can try and sort of put some stuff to it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So he gave me the Zeustas track that he'd done of the Zeustas breakout from the film Madagascar. Yeah, so it all just sort of went from there, really, and it was a case of just trying different effects. I've sort of go to bed. I've got a notebook by the side of the bed, and I'd go to bed, and I'm like, I've got an idea. Right, sketch it down. Right, this is how it would work. They'd come in from there, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was really fun because it's so many different techniques. You've got sort of like circles that have been plotted, and then I'd save those coordinates to like in a bank, and then given the sprites those coordinates are offsets. So those like spinning circles you see at the end, that's what they are. So that's how they work, and the same with like the sine wave with the almost like a worm, if you like, that goes up and down the screen. I think it's just after that. So yeah, so it's I like tinkering, and it usually results in something. I mean, tinkering again, I did in AGD again because I got quite into that at the time. When I first sort of found, I just googled and I found it by accident actually. I did like a Zelda, Legend of Zelda sort of demo.
Okay.
You know, like the first one on the NES.
Yeah.
So I did sort of the main screen. I sort of like copied. So I sort of like took screenshots, played the game. I took screenshots. Then I used paint.net, zoomed right in so I could get it pixel by pixel. Copied the sort of sprites as best I could because it's obviously just 1-bit sprites. And then yeah, just like tried to sort of like get a sword animation because you had to generate another sprite in front of it for the sword, and then stop the player moving at the same time so they can't move into the sword or away from it. And so yeah, so that was quite a good experiment to sort of see how it sort of get a player moving in multiple directions, pressing 2 keys at the same time, that kind of thing. But people sort of like, when are you going to release it? I'm like, well, I probably can't because obviously, you know, Nintendo are pretty hot on the copyright,
Yes.
aren't they?
Yeah.
So probably not a good idea, unless I call it something else and give it different graphics.
Yeah, well, you can always do that, yeah.
But tinkering is a big part of what I do, and I have this habit of trying something, and like, oh, that's good, and then I sort of think, oh, actually, I've got an idea for this. Oh, let's do that. Oh, I've got an idea for this. Oh, what's that over there? I've got an idea. So I sometimes have trouble focusing on one particular project. So I mean, I've got a couple at the moment. I'm working on a game at the moment, which is a port from I won't say what it is at the moment. But graphics may be done by a well-known person for it, thanks to Paul Hesso.
Okay.
And I think sort of Paul possibly might provide some music to it as well.
Right.
But it's a port of a Spectrum game, an original Spectrum game that was done by, I think it was actually done by Ocean. Yeah.
Oh,
so then,
okay. You got me thinking now, you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me thinking now.
But yeah, with Impossible as well, I might port that to the next, because in Basic, so everything I'm doing is in Basic in the next because it's so vast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like as good as AGD, but you've got the raw code to do everything you need with, like sprite commands, etc. Automatic sprite movements. It's so easy to do. But I've actually made my own platformer engine using Basic. So I can get it sort of like to detect walls when you jump on stuff. And it's all dynamic, so I can create any kind of scene I want, and it will automatically know where solid walls are, where platforms are that you can jump through and then land on, but can't go through them, but you can go up through them. That kind of thing. So I've got that, and that can be applied to so many different things.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've actually managed to replicate the same mechanics using the same sort of code, if you like, that I used in AGD to get a bouncing animation, and it works. It's weird. It works exactly the same. I've just translated it from AGD to Next Basic.
Yeah.
So Impossible might be coming to the next, an actual proper next version. So we'll see. But so that's a bit long-winded, but that's sort of like current stuff that I've sort of done, really. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fantastic if we could get a next version of it. I mean, I didn't get to play it until I think it was last year, and I ended up I think I did a little video.
Yeah.
because it threw me at first. The controls did. I think I remember commenting. Because
it's weird because you had to you can only sort of bounce, because I thought it'd be weird if you tried to sort of jump and you're sort of mid-air, because then you could effectively sort of go anywhere on the screen.
yeah,
So I thought try and get it when you hit the floor, because it's again the same as Impossible. You
mm-hmm.
could only bounce higher.
That's right.
When you'd hit the floor first.
Yeah,
Almost like that sort of trampoline effect.
yeah,
So I tried to sort of emulate that. So
yeah.
it's a bit weird to get used to at first. But yeah. But
Yeah,
I
it's
hope you enjoyed it.
absolutely. It's a when your brain gets it, it's a fantastic mechanic, because it would have spoilt it if you'd have just been able to have moved, and it would have made it a little bit easier, and you haven't got to think about it. Whereas you've got to get that timing right and go right now I can jump, and it's the way it should be. It just throws you at first.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what kind of move? Oh, I know. It's because I've got to follow real life, like real life physics, isn't it? I've got to follow the
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fantastic.
Oh,
Um, I've noticed you've got a blog that you keep.
Yes, I have. Yeah, it hasn't been updated for a couple of months, but yes, I've sort of decided to like start doing that off the sort of back of my my Facebook page. Really,
Yeah.
I thought, well, if people aren't on Facebook, then they sort of can see it that way as well. Really, so yeah, I think I started it March. I want to say March this year, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's retrobeachman.com, and I'll put some links and stuff in the description anyway, so everybody
Cheers.
can get to that. But one thing I have spotted on your page, well, there's a few things actually that I want to ask you about. First one is, are you dabbling in VR, the VR world? Because I love VR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you're working on within that space, if you like?
So I've done like a sort of a literal sandbox at the moment, just to sort of get me sort of used to like different mechanics and stuff, to make sure, because there's basically this framework called A-Frame,
Right.
which was released by Mozilla, who did Firefox a few years ago, and it's basically a way of integrating it into normal HTML code. So you might sort of say, oh, this bit is a paragraph, so that's the P tag, and then ending the paragraph would be /P tag. And it's more or less the same. It's basically just including these tags with parameters. And as long as you've sort of got that framework loaded in the background, which is basically just a JavaScript file, and then it's really, I think for me, it's quite sort of simple to create stuff in it. So I mean, originally I did have an idea, even like a gallery of like sort of games that you can just not sort of play, because you can't sort of integrate sort of things to play and such like that. You need to integrate emulators and all the kind of thing. And I think it's already been done with things like MUVR and things like that for the PC.
Yes, yeah.
But just literally like a gallery and maybe some info about some stuff, like basic stuff, or just like screenshots of the game. You can literally sort of walk around, almost sort of museum-esque, if you like. But one of the things that I'd probably sort of want to do, because now I've sort of worked out proper collisions and navigation meshes, so that you can just be constrained to walk along this path only and go this way, so you can't walk through walls, kind of thing. It's like a maze. I've always wanted to do like a kind of 3D maze. It's actually something that I tried to do in the Spectrum as well. Just like I'd have a map drawn out in an array, like AS1 equal 00 or 1 to 1 1 1 0 0, etc. And then I'd sort of like have draw commands. So basically clear the screen, and you'd move forward and it would draw the next one and sort of work out where all the openings need to be. If that was closed, if you're getting closer to that one. So I managed to sort of do that in BASIC, but it's something that I've always sort of gone to. I even sort of tried it in AGD as well. Sort of similar kind of thing. Just I don't know why. I just seem to have an affinity for trying out sort of making maze stuff.
Yeah, why not?
So a maze is probably sort of one of the things I want to sort of try. Then I want to try and sort of seeing if you can sort of get like enemies moving around, shooting them, that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's still very much in the early stages of sort of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to keep up with. But again, it's tinkering.
Yeah.
Trying out loads of stuff, and I can get that texture to look like that, or that moves around that way, that bounces that way, that's automatic. It's going back to my roots again of the Spectrum, and applying it to that. So it's great. I love it.
I love VR. I've been waiting for the level. It's still not at the level that is in my mind, but I was waiting for the current level of VR since Lawnmower Man. When I watched that film, I was like, "Oh man, I need this." But what VR system have you got?
I've got the Quest 2.
Yeah, which is so good. I mean, they've just increased the price on that. So
yeah, I just put it up £100, but on both options, haven't they?
Yeah, which is a little bit naughty, really. I don't know why they've done that. Unless they've done it because they've got well, it's not going to be called the Quest. Is it the next one? It'll be probably called the Meta, which will be the Quest 3.
Yeah.
And what they'll probably do is they'll release that obviously at a price, and then they'll knock £100 off the Quest 2, which puts it back to the original price, which is a bit naughty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I can see him. That's what I can see him doing.
Is it Project Cambria or something? They've called it that, and working on it, haven't they? Something like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting when it comes along to see how further along it is from the Quest 2. Because I mean, the Quest 2 is probably at like sort of maybe PS2 stage thereabouts, PS1, PS2. Well, not PS1, but probably sort of the equivalent like PS2 stage. So it'd be, in my opinion, so I think it'd be interesting to see just how much they can change that, how much they can improve, and what additional features, eye tracking, hand tracking, body tracking. So
yeah,
that'd be interesting.
I mean, it's pretty good at the moment. I mean, have you tried the hand tracking on the Quest 2?
Yeah,
that's weird, isn't it? That is so strange.
Where they've changed it and improved it as well now.
How have they?
They've because it used to be sort of like you'd see sort of the hands sort of doing this and stuff.
That's right.
But it can properly detect like finger movements. So even if you're sort of just like sort of doing that, it can see your finger bending like properly, and it tries to estimate. If it can't see your other fingers, it tries to estimate where they are and what they're doing, and then it's pretty accurate, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they've improved it a lot.
I mean, I think Valve have set a standard, haven't they? They really have. I mean, Half-Life Alyx, absolutely amazing.
That's amazing, yeah.
But I've got to say, physics-wise, I don't know if you've played Boneworks. Have you played that?
Boneworks, no, it's on my list. I have actually got it. I just haven't actually played it yet. But yeah,
Boneworks for me is the VR game everybody should be playing. Yeah. It hasn't got the. I mean, don't get me wrong, the graphics in it are incredible, but because the physics are next level, even more so than Alyx. Apart from the liquid shader, when they added that in Alyx. Have you seen the liquid shader in Alyx? When you pick up a bottle and you can see the liquid in the bottle.
I can't remember. It's a while ago. No, I can't. I've actually got it, so it actually moves around and stuff.
It's mind blowing. Apparently, it took them a month to do it.
Though, is something else,
it is. But that just that shader, you'll spend half an hour just picking up bottles doing this and going, "How are they doing that?"
Yeah,
because it looks so real.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'll have to do that. So.
Yeah, it is good. It is good.